It begins not with a word, but with a look, a single glance, silent, unmoved, and yet commanding. Most people think power is loud, that influence is in the voice. That control comes from words, arguments, and cleverness. But the deepest power, the one that bends reality without ever touching it, that power is silent. And Friedrich Nietzsche knew this. He once wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." You don't need to convince the world. You need to understand the game beneath the game. Because while everyone else is talking, you will be watching, listening, waiting, calculating. This video isn't about manipulation. It's not about being smarter in the conventional sense. It's about something far older, far deeper. This is about presence, power, perception. It's about seeing through people before they even know who they're pretending to be. It's about harnessing an ancient truth, that mastery of silence is mastery of mind. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how Nietzsche's most misunderstood philosophies can teach you to outsmart anyone without even opening your mouth. We'll uncover forgotten tactics used by mystics, warriors, and sages. We'll explore the esoteric principle of invisible dominance, how those who say the least often shape the world the most. You'll see why modern minds miss the true message behind Nietzsche's madness, and how his wisdom reveals the ultimate psychological advantage. This isn't about deceit, it's about awareness. By the end of this journey, you won't just walk differently, you'll see differently. And in a world addicted to noise, your silence will become your most lethal weapon. To understand the silent power Nietzsche speaks of, we must travel backward, not just through history, but into the hidden chambers of philosophy, where words were never the final goal, only the key to deeper seeing. Friedrich Nietzsche was no ordinary philosopher. He was a seer cloaked in a madman's robe, a prophet mistaken for a cynic, a man who peered so deeply into the human condition, it nearly devoured him. But his most powerful teachings were never meant to be shouted from podiums. They were whispers, intended for those who had the eyes to see and the strength to listen beyond language. He admired strength, not brute force, but existential power. The kind of strength that doesn't need validation. The kind that walks into a room and bends its gravity without uttering a syllable. This wasn't just a philosophical ideal. It was an echo of something much older. In ancient Egypt, the concept of Heka referred to divine utterance. But those trained in the priesthood knew the most powerful magic was unspoken. They believed the wisest never revealed their knowledge fully, because truth loses its force the moment it's reduced to common language. The Taoist sages of China taught the same. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The master communicates through silence, through presence. His influence, like wind, invisible yet undeniable. The samurai of feudal Japan were trained not only in swordplay, but in stillness. Zanshin, the state of relaxed awareness, allowed them to dominate a battlefield before blades ever clashed. They read body language, sensed hesitation, and struck with perfect timing. A single glance could unsettle a lesser warrior. Nietzsche, though a man of letters, admired this primal, silent dominion. He saw that in a world addicted to opinion, those who speak little but perceive much rule without crowns. He rejected the herd mentality, the unconscious mimicry of those who talk to be heard rather than to understand. He taught that truth is a personal quest and power a personal discipline, not an external show, but an internal alchemy. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes of the new nobility, those who live by a higher standard, indifferent to the judgments of the masses. These overmen don't dominate by force. They outgrow it. They transcend. And in doing so, they render manipulation and argument obsolete. But why has this wisdom been forgotten? Because silence threatens fragile egos. In modern society, we're trained to speak, to perform, and to prove. Silence is seen as weakness, or worse, emptiness. But Nietzsche knew silence is a sword, and those who wield it become terrifying to those still trapped in noise. The ancients knew, the mystics knew, and deep down, you know too, that something about stillness makes people uncomfortable. When you observe without reacting, people reveal who they are. It's not magic. It's psychology aligned with primordial truth. And if you learn to harness this, like Nietzsche did, not only will you begin to outthink others, you'll begin to see through them entirely. Imagine standing in a crowded room. Everyone is speaking, arguing, and persuading, voices overlapping like a cacophony of desperate bids for attention. But there you are, silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand something they do not. True power often does not need to announce itself. Nietzsche's silent mastery is rooted in a simple but profound principle: presence over noise. It is the art of becoming so grounded in your awareness that your silence speaks volumes, more than any word ever could. Let me tell you a story. There was once a master chess player, known not for his flashy moves, but for his unshakable calm. Opponents would try to bait him into conversation, distracting him from the game. But he said nothing, he simply watched. His silence unnerved them because they knew deep down he was already 5 moves ahead. His quiet confidence was a weapon. This is the essence of Nietzsche's teaching on silent influence. You outsmart not by arguing louder, but by seeing clearly. How? First, by cultivating what Nietzsche called the will to power. This is not power over others, but power over oneself. The ability to control your impulses, emotions, and reactions. When you master this inner realm, you become immune to manipulation and immune to provocation. You don't react hastily. You don't reveal your thoughts prematurely. Instead, you observe. Second, by embracing the power of strategic silence. Consider the old saying, silence is golden. But silence is not just valuable, it is active. It compels others to fill the void with their thoughts, often revealing their intentions, weaknesses, and desires. When you speak less, you force others to speak more, and in doing so, they inadvertently give you the upper hand. Nietzsche's own words echo this. The best friend is likely to acquire the best wife, because a good marriage is founded on silence. Why silence in marriage? Because it signifies understanding beyond words, a connection deeper than dialogue, a power that binds without need for constant proof. Third, Nietzsche understood the psychology of projection and how silence can disarm it. When people don't get a reaction from you, no anger, no agreement, no defense, they are left to confront their thoughts and assumptions. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their insecurities. This makes you appear stronger, untouchable. Now, the silence Nietzsche advocates is not passive or submissive. It is a deliberate state of being, a fortress built from self-control and awareness. Think of it like this. Words are arrows shot into the chaos of misunderstanding. Silence, on the other hand, is the steady eye of the hawk, unblinking, unmoved, ready to strike with precision. This is why Nietzsche's silent power is often misunderstood. In a culture that prizes loud opinions and immediate reactions, silence is mistaken for weakness, indecision, or emptiness. But Nietzsche challenges this. He invites you to become the still point in the storm. The observer who knows that true victory lies not in dominating the noise, but in transcending it. He also warns against the dangers of empty silence, the kind born of fear, ignorance, or apathy. The silence of the wise is different. It is full of intention, full of presence. And when you carry this kind of silence, you don't need to convince others of your strength. They feel it. And that, in itself, is outsmarting anyone without a single word spoken. Now, let us descend deeper into the labyrinth of Nietzsche's silent mastery, unveiling the hidden paradoxes and esoteric layers often concealed beneath the surface of his philosophy. At first glance, silence might seem simple, even mundane. Yet Nietzsche teaches us it is a complex, almost alchemical force, a silent language of power, presence, and subtlety that most never learn to read. One paradox stands out: silence as the loudest form of communication. How can the absence of speech speak louder than words? Because silence creates a space, a void, where meaning is not dictated, but discovered. It compels those around you to project their fears, desires, and intentions onto you, revealing their true nature without a single utterance on your part. In this, Nietzsche's silence is a mirror and a trap. It forces others into self-exposure. Think of it as the silent gaze of a sphinx guarding ancient wisdom, challenging all who approach to decipher its riddle without the comfort of easy answers. This power is not merely psychological, but metaphysical. Nietzsche's philosophy is steeped in the recognition that language is inherently limited and often betrays true intent. Words can be twisted, misunderstood, or weaponized. Silence transcends these limitations by cutting through the noise, speaking directly to the intuitive and primal layers of consciousness. From the esoteric tradition, silence has always been revered as sacred, a gateway to gnosis, or direct experiential knowledge. The mystics of old knew that behind the veil of speech lies a vast ocean of truth, accessible only through quietude. Why then has this sacred silence been lost or feared in modern times? Nietzsche suggests this loss is tied to society's obsession with control and external validation. We live in a world drowning in words, opinions, debates, endless chatter, where silence is mistaken for absence rather than presence. This misunderstanding breeds a cultural blindness to the profound strength silence holds. But here is where the esoteric veil lifts further. Nietzsche's silence is also an act of sovereignty. To be silent is to declare you do not belong to the noise of the masses. You are an autonomous force, unshackled from the compulsive need to justify, explain, or be understood. It is a rebellion against the tyranny of expectation and a reclaiming of your narrative. This sovereignty of silence also reveals a deeper truth about human interaction. True influence never demands compliance. It invites transformation. When you speak less and embody more, you do not force change. You inspire it by your very being. This leads us to a crucial esoteric insight. The silent warrior is not engaged in battle against others, but against his inner chaos. Nietzsche's ideal Übermensch, Overman, masters this inner silence, a silence born of overcoming fear, doubt, and the endless chatter of the ego. And this inner mastery radiates outward, silently shifting the dynamics of every interaction. Yet, beware the common misconception that silence means passivity or detachment. Nietzsche's silence is dynamic. It is a deliberate and active choice, a conscious withholding of power until the perfect moment, like the serpent coiled, poised to strike, not wasting energy in a futile noise, but conserving strength for precise impact. This is why silence can be disarming and unsettling. It denies others the usual cues they rely on to manipulate or control the narrative. When you do not react, they lose their footing. To them, silence becomes a riddle wrapped in mystery, an enigma they cannot solve, and that is your advantage. Now, some might argue, isn't speaking the best way to assert yourself? How can silence alone outsmart? Nietzsche would reply, speaking without mastery is like throwing stones in the dark, loud, chaotic, and ultimately ineffective. Silence, when wielded with wisdom, is a spotlight in the darkness, illuminating what others cannot see. It is the art of strategic invisibility, making you impossible to pin down or predict. And this, dear seeker, is the essence of outsmarting without a word. Now that we have peeled back the layers of Nietzsche's silent power, it's time to bring this esoteric wisdom into your daily life, transforming abstract philosophy into living, breathing practice. The path to outsmarting anyone without saying a word begins within. It demands cultivating presence, awareness, and an inner calm that radiates effortlessly outward. 1. Cultivate the sacred silence within. Begin each day with a ritual of silence. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Let the world's noise fall away as you settle into the stillness beneath your thoughts. This is not mere absence of sound, but a deliberate attunement to the deeper currents of your consciousness. As Nietzsche implies, true silence comes from mastery over your inner chaos, your fears, judgments, and compulsive mental chatter. Practice observing your thoughts without engaging them. Witness the storm without getting swept away. This daily inner silence trains you to respond with calmness, not reactivity, in every interaction. 2. Master the art of listening. Silence is a powerful listening tool. When you resist the urge to fill every pause, you create space for others to reveal themselves. Practice active listening, not just hearing words, but sensing underlying emotions, intentions, and contradictions. The silent observer becomes a living mirror, reflecting truths others hide, even from themselves. By listening more and speaking less, you gain unseen insights that allow you to navigate conversations and conflicts with wisdom rather than impulse. 3. Use body language as your unspoken language. Nietzsche's silent mastery is not just about withholding words, but expressing presence through the body. Train yourself to embody calm authority, steady posture, relaxed breathing, and deliberate movements. A calm, confident gaze can say more than pages of argument. When you enter a room, let your energy command attention without a sound. This nonverbal communication plants seeds of respect and intrigue in the minds of others before you utter a word. 4. Practice strategic withdrawal. One of Nietzsche's most potent silent tactics is knowing when to withdraw, physically, emotionally, or mentally. When confronted by aggression, manipulation, or superficial chatter, respond with quiet disengagement. This is not avoidance, but an intentional reclaiming of your energy. Like a shadow that vanishes when you try to grasp it, your silence disorients those who seek to control or provoke you. 5. Embody the enigma. Let silence make you an enigma. Avoid the trap of oversharing your thoughts, intentions, or feelings. When people cannot predict or label you, you hold the advantage. This does not mean deception, but sacred discretion. Wisdom is knowing what to reveal and when to withhold, overcoming common obstacles. Many struggle with silence because society equates speaking with power. Fear of being misunderstood or ignored can push us to fill every silence with noise. But Nietzsche's teaching urges a shift in perspective. Power is not the volume of your voice, but the weight of your presence. If you falter in moments of silence, return to your breath, ground yourself in the present, and remember that silence is your shield and your sword. By weaving these practices into your life, you begin to wield silence as Nietzsche intended. Not as weakness or absence, but as an invisible force, an ancient, secret weapon. You learn to outsmart conflict, confusion, and chaos, not through endless debate, but through quiet command of your inner realm. Silence becomes your ally, a mystical power that transcends words and transforms reality itself. You have journeyed through shadows and silence, unveiling a power hidden beneath the clamor of words, a power Nietzsche knew well, yet few have dared to embrace. To outsmart anyone without saying a word is to master yourself first. It is to wield silence not as emptiness, but as presence, not as surrender, but as sovereignty. This ancient wisdom, veiled in history and misunderstood by many, now calls you to step beyond the surface of communication. It invites you to become the silent force in a noisy world, the still eye at the center of every storm. Remember, true strength is never loud. It moves quietly, shifts the unseen, and alters destinies without uttering a single sound. The real battle is always within. When you conquer your chaos, the world around you bends, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you radiated a calm so profound it demands recognition. So ask yourself, how might your life change if you spoke less but understood more? If your silence became your greatest strategy, would it also be your deepest wisdom? Will you be the one who listens in the shadows, moves unseen, and wins without a fight? The secret lies in embracing the silence Nietzsche revered, an ancient art, a mystical dance of power and presence. As you leave this space, carry this truth quietly with you. Practice it, live it, become it, and watch how the world responds, not to your words, but to the weight of your unspoken will. If this revelation stirred something deep within you, share your thoughts below. Which silent power will you claim first? And don't forget to subscribe. There are more ancient secrets waiting to be unveiled. Until next time, walk your path in silence and let your presence speak volumes.